Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm Michelle Rowan, President of Franchise Business Review, and I have Eric Stites, our founder and CEO, with me. What we did was we tried to design this to be very quick, just to give you some quick tips and ideas from the work that we have done over the last 15 years with over 1,100 brands. So we are open for questions, but this is going to go fast and furious. If we don't answer them, we can follow up with you after. But I am Michelle, and I'm going to let Eric get us started here. Oh, actually, I'm going to get us started. Sorry about that. So, Eric, sometimes when I know we just did another one. So sometimes we hear franchisors talk about franchisee satisfaction and engagement being one of those warm and fuzzy metrics or something about the culture of the brand, and they don't think about it as something that's measurable or impactful for their bottom line. So that's what we kind of wanted to focus on today. So, Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you to share some of the data that we've found around the importance of satisfaction to the health of the brand, and then share some ways our clients are actually creating KPIs around this type of data in their systems.
Right. No, well, welcome, everybody, and thanks for taking 15 minutes here this Friday afternoon. You're right, and I mean, I think intuitively everyone understands that whether you're talking about employees or franchisees, a more engaged, satisfied franchisee is going to perform at a higher level. But, it's really important to put quantitative KPIs around that, what we like to call the franchisee mindset. And, it's really amazing. The data is staggering when you look at this as far as the link between satisfaction and franchisee performance. And when we look at this is our current data across nearly 300 leading franchise brands, over 23,000 franchisees. When you look at things like unit growth, royalties, turnover, franchisee income, that performance gap is just huge between the top franchise brands and those that are towards the bottom. When you're talking about, unit growth, I mean, a 10x gap is just unbelievable. Royalties, same thing. Turnover, I mean, turnover is half for those top performing brands. And I think most importantly, certainly for franchisees, is income. I mean, franchisees at the top performing brands are generating twice the income than their competition. And I know that we did a poll before the webinar that many of you answered. And the number one challenge was unit level economics. So certainly, I think this should hit home for a lot of people. So when we talk about that economic value, I think it's very easy to put direct comparisons on satisfaction and how that drives economic value in your system with, higher unit level performance, increased operational effectiveness. I think that's probably near and dear to a lot of people's hearts on this call. As far as, with your top performing, higher performing franchise owners, that they require less support. They're more open to changes, new programs, new products and services that you may be offering. Obviously, higher royalties, reduced turnover, as we said, and certainly for your development team, higher validation is gonna drive that growth significantly.
Yeah, Eric, on that point, I was looking at some information that our team shared with us just today. And of our top 200 brands, 85% of their franchisees would recommend it to others versus only 68% that are below that top 200. So it is, I think, one of those things they say, if you don't measure it, you can't move it, but it definitely has an economic value to your brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and so how do you then take that and put it into, measurable KPIs and how do you actually make that work at the operational level? And certainly, things like bonusing your team on metrics around satisfaction and engagement with your franchisees. I mean, that's something that a lot of our clients will do. And again, that's where having, a KPI like our franchise satisfaction index, and even drilling down further into specific areas around that index, whether it be training and support or technology for your technology team, innovation for maybe your product research team, looking at those individual KPIs can really be critical. and then tying that back to your franchisees. I mean, I talk a lot about having franchisees do vision plans. And, really at the end of the day, a franchise is just, buying a franchise is just a vehicle to help your franchisees achieve their personal goals. So, understanding what their personal goals are at an in-depth level, and then figuring out how your model can help them achieve those personal goals, and then constantly revisiting those with, having franchise business coaches talk to your franchisees constantly about what their goals are, how we can help you get there. We have a great franchise vision plan workbook. If anybody would want that, I'm happy to. We can send that out to you. Just chime into the chat box and just say workbook if you want a copy of that, and we'll get it out right to you. But I mean, that's certainly a great way to really tie some of these metrics back. And another important piece of this is really understanding the life cycle of the franchisee. Greg Nathan has a couple of great books on this, but understanding where the franchisee is in the life cycle of the business is important. And I'm a boater. I know some of you may be boaters, and some of you certainly have heard the expression about the two happiest days in a boater's life are the day they buy the boat and then the day they sell their boat. I think in a lot of cases that may be true for a number of franchisees with their franchise experience too. And when we look at that data as far as franchisee tenure, and we spend a lot of time, or the brands spend a lot of time in the development process kind of building up this dream and vision of a franchise. And when they write that check and become a franchisee, they're so excited. They're at that peak of satisfaction. I mean, they've got nowhere to go but down from there, and that's generally the trend. But the best brands, as we look at here, those represented by this red line here versus the gray line, which is everybody else, is the best brands address that. And the two things that they really do differently than others is, one, they set realistic expectations from the get-go. So franchisees know that it's going to be hard work, and they know it's going to take a realistic time to ramp up. And they're not selling this pipe dream that's really not realistic. And then the other thing that they do is they design their training and support specifically around that franchisee life cycle. So they know, at grand opening what support they need. 6 months in, a year in, those needs obviously change. A lot of people talk about franchise training as drinking from a fire hose, and we've looked at a lot of systems and how franchisees rate training specifically. And when they first complete training, they rate it very highly, and then over time those scores drop. So again, it's important to understand where the franchisee is in the life cycle, what support they may need, and you got to meet them where they are.
Yeah, and Eric, I want to pipe in with some specific client examples of how they're using our franchisee satisfaction data or this KPI stuff internally, but also assuming that people on this call are doing something to measure that feedback internally, if not with a vendor. But we have some clients that they use the satisfaction feedback they get from their franchisees to really align the operations and the development side. So I know today's calls with ops people. And the idea is, okay, that's great to say, bring in the right people, set realistic expectations, but that's on another department. But you can use these scores, you can tie them to bonus or performance plans to really make sure that everyone is aligned in what your goals are for those franchisees. And we have some clients that even comp their development team on, you get some of it when that person signs on, but based on their performance at the end of year one. That's an idea that you can do. Another is to have the ops team more involved in that discovery day or that process. So whether or not they give you the full weight to nix a candidate or move them forward, if not, giving you the opportunity to give the feedback or the pitfalls that you see could happen with this potential owner, so that again, everyone's coming in knowing the person that you're inheriting into your system that has been sold, and now your team has to support and make sure they're successful. So those are a couple of areas to think about using the data. The other is doing more customized questions on our survey or on internally and asking for feedback from the franchisees about their particular department that they interact with, or the field rep that they are assigned to or working with, or even your management team, so that you can identify who have strong scores, who have best practices that they could share with others on your team, who has lower scores where you have an opportunity to coach them up or move them out if that's not the right seat for them to be in. So just some ways to think about how you can really turn these KPIs into something that you use to move the needle.
Absolutely.
So, we always say just don't rely on your gut and the anecdotal feedback from how your team is interacting with franchisees. It's important for you to get a number, to measure it, and to understand how you can move the brand forward. So getting that baseline and then sharing that data back with your franchise community, talking about what's going well and what needs work from their perspective, and then really using that to realign everybody to say, here's what's to come and how we're going to move forward together to grow our brand the best way that we can. So I think that the trend that we're seeing in talking to clients is that they're definitely staying in touch more often. So doing an overall annual checkup, our annual survey that we do, great way to just check in on the culture and make sure that everyone's validating well and things look good. But then doing more frequent, deeper, shorter, specific questions being asked in that kind of what we call a pulse survey. So you're staying in touch about specific initiatives or different things that you want to get more feedback on, but not taking up a lot of your franchisees' time to get that and having that kind of constant feedback loop that's coming. But I think the most important thing to consider from an operations team standpoint is don't just survey for survey's sake. It's really important that you do something with the data, that you share it back, that it's not just being done once a year and kind of stuck in a drawer, but using it to really coach your field reps on how to use the data to build better relationships and continue to just kind of ask for the expectation of your franchisees and realign it if it's unrealistic, or really just having everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. That's really the most important thing. Otherwise, you're just fighting against them because they're expecting something else than what you guys are doing for them. So I think, we get a lot of, we're going to skip the survey this year. We know the franchisees are happy. And just a word of caution that it's not always about you. The survey is just as important to do so that they know that they're being heard and that they can kind of check you on if they think that you're executing on what you promised to them in the last survey. So we do think it's important to keep something formal in place, whether it's something you do internally or with another vendor, just so that they feel heard, they feel involved. So definitely the trend that we're seeing. So again, Eric, I'm going to let you just kind of recap what we ran through as far as the best way to get some movement with the data that you're collecting.
Yeah, and I would reiterate that, certainly, if you talked about an employee annual review, if things weren't going well at the company and you weren't maybe giving raises, you still would have that annual review with all your employees and reinforce what their goals are and what they're doing well and what can be improved. And it's the same thing for the franchisee. You need to certainly get that feedback, and it is just as much for them as it is for you. But again, tying in those kind of key things, the bonus structure, I think that's a no-brainer. Bonusing your team based on satisfaction. It's always kind of a joke that the development team gets all these commissions based on closing these deals. Well, I think the ops team should be, getting commissions and certainly bonuses based on the performance of franchise owners. So for sure, talk to your team about that. Dig deeper with the data, work with your franchisees at conference and regional meetings and on phone calls as far as, just constantly communicating back to franchisees that, you're using this information from the survey data that you're collecting and how it's improving the system. It's really just about, again, just constant communication of, we hear you, this is what we're doing, this is, where the programs are going, we want your feedback, let's brainstorm this together. You're obviously going to build that commitment to transparency, and that's obviously both the good and the bad. Don't be afraid to share things that aren't scoring well, and have your franchisees brainstorm with you on ways that you can improve that. A lot of great ideas obviously will come from the franchisees. And again, so much of this is just about aligning expectations or realigning expectations, and having, as I said earlier, setting expectations from the get-go. So that, again, everybody's on the same page. We know what's realistic, and you can respond to survey results over time. And as Michelle said, sharing that data back with franchisees is critically important. Don't stuff it in the drawer.
Absolutely. So we really encourage everyone to participate in our free research. We offer a free version of our survey. It's confidential. We're constantly trying to share aggregate data and best practices, so it's important that we get everybody involved to do this. But we are offering to, if you are doing something internal or working with someone else, we are happy to take a look at the questions you're asking or talk a little bit more about what you're doing with it and offer you any advice that we can, because we do feel like this is very important for our industry to get it right and to involve our franchisees and kind of regulate our own industry before others do it for us. So would love for you guys to drop us a note. Let us know if you are interested in taking part in the research, if you have questions about what you're currently doing. But also let us know if you're going to be heading to the IFA Operations Conference. It's in New Orleans, September 24th and 5th, and we will be there and would absolutely love to talk more in person. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.